I promised I would make you all another super fun tutorial using our awesome Vida Loca fabric. Well, today's that day. Let's get started. Okay, crafters, today's tutorial is really for you, but welcome everybody, quilters alike, sewers alike. Welcome to Making It Fun. I am Rob Appell, the host for Michael Miller Fabrics. I'm super excited you are joining me today. We are going to do a really cool little box bag or a zipper tote. It's going to have no raw edges, fully lined. It is great, and I wish I was showing you a sample right now. However, while getting ready for today's video, I cut the corners wrong. I wasn't cutting corners, I just cut the corners wrong, and in doing so, I've made Mike a fabulous little zippered sleeping bag over here, but it's not exactly the tutorial we're doing today. Now, what I am doing, like I said, we're going to use our wonderful Vida Loca fabrics as we get started, but I'm going to be basically following the instructions for the zippered box bag that you can find over on our wonderful website, michaelmillerfabrics.com. We have a page for inspiration, free sewing patterns, free quilting patterns, all kinds of free downloads. And our friend over at prettymodern.com has done some really cool written instructions. So I'm using her sizes to follow along. I'm going to make a few changes because I've done these tutorials before as well for the box bags. I have a couple things that I just do. We all do different things, and that's the cool thing about sewing, and that's the cool thing about YouTube and tutorials and all of this free content that all of us are putting out there. You can follow along with those that you care for. I get a kick out of all the comments that say I'm too long-winded, and here I am just standing here talking. So anyways, let's dive into today's project. Like I said, we want to use this wonderful skull fabric, sugar skulls from Vida Loca. This was my favorite print from the entire collection. I just think it's really cool. And then we're also going to use today just this easy printed fabric for the liner. This is one of the coordinates, but we're doing a lot of right sides, wrong sides and stuff together. So I chose a print, both print, so you could really see what was going on. A couple other supplies you're going to want to have. You're going to want to have some fusible fleece. You can use Bosal foam if you like as well, but it might get just a little too thick. So I'm using the Heat and Bond brand or Thermoweb fusible fleece that I absolutely love. I'm going to use some Zipper by the Yard because I always have it about. You should also have Zipper by the Yard around for all of those great projects. So as we dive in today, you're going to need basically 2 pieces from each of your prints and or solids. These fabrics right now are 7 inches by 10 inches. 10 this way, and the print direction will be important. We'll go over that in a second. I also have a few little scrap pieces I've used. Now these are going to be what become the zipper pull. So you want roughly 3 inches by 4 inches, 2.5 by 4 inches, something like that. And I'm just going to use the liner fabric. It will show on the outside of the bag, so it adds a little more character in my opinion. 2 of those, and then you actually need 4 of your lining pieces unless you're using a really thick liner. I should say, what was this stuff called? I've drawn a blank. Now these are the fused, so as I'm getting ready to work with these, I'm putting them right sides up or the rough sides up. You need 4 of these, and let's just go ahead and start getting these ready right now. Turning the iron on, getting that nice and warm, and if you can see me sweating today, I apologize. We're having a bit of a heat wave here in California while I'm doing my best to film this, and I just feel warm. I'm just going to say that, we just feel warm. So as I'm prepping out my pieces, rough sides are up, the rough side is the glue, and right now the easiest way to go ahead and bond this to my interfacing, that was a word I was looking for a little while ago, was interfacing. I'm just going to go ahead and put them print sides up on top of the glue. I've got a really nice hot iron, and I just like to start in the center, and I'm just going to slowly move that iron over the fabric, heating up that glue below so it really bonds nicely in both directions, and you can feel that's almost just too hot to the touch. So we're going to go ahead and do this to all 4 pieces real quick. And as you finish ironing up all of the interfacing to the back sides of your print, let's go ahead. We have one more step to do, and it is crucial that you know what you want to use as the top. We're going to mark our sewing lines for our zipper. So obviously I want my prints for this. It's very directional, right sides up. So right now I'm just going to flip those over. I'm going to flip them both over at the same time, and I'm just going to pull out a ruler, and I'd like you to mark basically a 1/2 inch marking, and make sure you can really see it. And this is going to be our don't sew past this line. Okay, this is going to really help us. So I'm just going to go ahead both sides over here, 1/2 inch. And we're going to do the same. Now my liner is not directional, so it won't really matter. But again, I just want to go ahead and get a 1/2 inch marker so I know where to stop sewing as we install that zipper. Okay, once those are created, now we need to get our zipper ready. So you may already have a zipper in a package. If you did, you need about a 12-inch zipper because we have 10 inches across the top of our fabrics right now. If you've never seen Zipper by the Yard, I kind of thought I'd wait to do this with you all together. This is pretty fun. You see, I've got all these little heads stuck right here in this By the Yard zipper, which is really great. You only need one head for this project, and so what I need to be able to do is slide the rest of the heads. And what I want to do real quick is I want to know where 12 inches is, but before I cut it. So I'm going to put my thumb about here, 12 inches, maybe keep my eye there, or even better, if I just put it on the table, I can look up and see. And now we're going to slide these zippers way past that 12-inch mark, like this, okay? And now we have it, we can bring it right down here, and I'm just going to use a good sturdy pair of scissors, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this. These are nylon teeth, so I'm not worried about damaging my zipper at all, or my scissors at all, I should have said. But now you have a 12-inch zipper with a single head. Right now it's kind of positioned in the middle, but we're going to go ahead and move that also here in a second. Now with the Zipper by the Yard, depending on which way you zip or unzip, it'll open up, right? So I want to go ahead and move this and keep my zipper closed or sealed at the moment. So we're going to zip it very close to the end, but not all the way off. Do be careful or stick a safety pin in there if you're just not the careful kind. Okay, now let's get ready to put this bad boy in. We're going to take our liner fabric. We're going to start with a liner piece, print side up. Now I'm going to take my zipper and I'm going to lay it here and make sure the head is off, out of the way. And I'm thinking of this is going to be my stitch line. This is my raw edge out there. So you notice that my zipper is inside the body right now. Okay. Now, as I go ahead and I'm going to grab my print fabric, I have my marks at the top. That's going to really help me, right? And I'm going to put those right here. And I'm going to, as I get ready to sew, make sure all 3 layers line up here. Right now, I'm just double checking the outside edges, and I'm going to go ahead and head on over to the sewing machine. You don't really need a zipper foot with this, but you could if you wanted to. I'm just going to go ahead and use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can even see my edge guide. But as I come in, I want to make sure we're not going to sew past that little black line, and we're also not going to start in front of that little black line. So I'm going to scoot this back. I can see the black line right through my presser foot. I'm going to go ahead and drop that presser foot, begin sewing, but I do want to lock my stitches in today. I want to make sure that I don't have anything getting unsecured. And now that that is all held, I'm going to take a moment and I'm just going to line up the edge of the welting on the zipper. I'm going to line up all the layers with all my prints and all my interfacing. We're just going to rock and roll right through here. Keeping a good pace. We're just going to stitch all the way till we see that black mark, our 1/2 inch stop point. And when we get there, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to back stitch, cut some thread, lift that presser foot, and we now have secured the zipper. And as this goes over, we're going to lose those raw edges. I promise, we're no raw edges today. This is going to be really cool. Let's take a moment real quick though and press these fabrics out of our way so we can do the same to the other side. Doesn't have to be perfect yet, but we are going to top stitch, so do take your time to try to get a nice seam, nice crease right there for us. Coming on over here, perfect. But before we do any top stitching, let's go ahead and put the other zipper in. And this is where your brain might want to play tricks on you, might want to get confused on you. So just remember, that was our outside edge, our raw edge, and we started with our print side up, excuse me, I called it a print. They're both prints. This is the liner. So we're going to start with that, right sides up. Now as I go to mount this, looking at that outside line, I'm also using my bag to be to make sure that all the panels have lined up. Simple, right? Here's that last print with the skull heads, the sugar skulls. And once again, we're going to drop that. And you notice now we've gone right sides together, wrong sides out. I want to make sure I didn't get going too fast. There's my start spot right there. I'm going to pinch, you might want to pin, and I'm going to head on over to the sewing machine to get this started just right. Once again, that zipper head is not in our way. We don't need to use a zipper foot, but we do need to respect that little black line. Drop your presser foot, go ahead and start. Back stitch to secure. Again, taking a moment, making sure everything has gotten and stayed nicely lined up, or you're pinned. And then go ahead and we're going to rock and roll through these layers as well. Again, stopping at that black line. We'll go ahead and backstitch. And now we'll press these sides also, making sure everything's nice and clean, nice and secure. I'm kind of giving a tug on both layers right now, so I can get that out like that. Fantastic. Even better. So now we're just going to top stitch these lines right now to secure along our zipper. You can top stitch right along the edge. I'm just going to kind of cheat using my 1/4 inch seam allowance guide today. Put that right underneath there. Now, let's talk about this though. I don't want you to sew all the way to the end. So remember, we might even want to come in here and mark or eyeball or just know that's where my seam starts. So it might be a great idea at this moment for us to go ahead. I know I don't use these pins very often, but let's just do it today. Let's just do it. Slide that through, just kind of as an idea. We'll do one down here so we know right where the action is. Okay, now we can come on over to our machine. We're not going to stitch into that pin, of course. So I'm going to start right on the other side of it, scoot my fabric just a little over. And now I'm sewing through all of the layers, the zipper welting, everything, to make a really nice, secure top stitch finish. Really cleans things up. Again, stopping at that pin, which represents that black line on the other side. You may want to backstitch here as well. And before you pull those pins, don't pull the pins. I want you to go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side of the zipper. So we're just going to do the same top stitching. And we're going to backstitch to finish. Once your threads are cut, you can pull those pins out of the way. You might need them later, so keep them handy. But we've got our top stitching done now. Now it's time to go ahead and kind of get our pieces and parts together. So we're going to start addressing outside and inside of the bag together. So the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to flop this over, and this is the liner. So we're going to sew across, but we're going to leave ourselves a decent size opening. Remember, this fabric's going to be a little thick, a little less pliable because of that awesome fused interfacing. So we're just going to do a couple of inches of sewing on both sides, but you can start now at the very edge. So sew a couple of inches, and you definitely want to backstitch. You want to secure your threads here because you will be pulling and pushing on this part a lot as we're turning the bag right sides out. And then I like to do, about a full hand's distance. I come all the way down. Let's drop that presser foot again. Backstitch again, securing that area. And now we're going to go ahead and finish. And that was, if you didn't catch it, that was the bottom edge of the liner. We still have our outside edges open. Okay, now we're going to do the same exact thing. Almost. It's almost the same. We're going to go all the way across the bottom now of our exterior fabrics and the interfacings. Okay, so the bottom is completely secured of our exterior. Now we're going to start to think about putting in our zipper pulls and rearranging the setup of the bag. But let's make those pulls so that it makes sense. We have them in our hands. I'm just going to set that aside for a second. I'm grabbing those chunks that were roughly 3 inches by 4 inches. We're going to fold them in half, right sides together, so they're going to be long little rectangles. These are going to be the tabs we hang onto when pulling the bag zippers open and close. And now I'm going to come in here and just use a little 1/4 inch seam allowance, blast through these real quick. As a matter of fact, if you're a chain piecer, you can go ahead and do that right now. We got to turn these bad boys out right side out. So now what I like to do, because they're short enough, I'm going to just put my tweezers through. I'm going to grab kind of that seam allowance and just pull back on it so that I can get, come on now. Oh, I missed it. I got so excited I let go. See how easy this is? I'm kidding. But you can also poke at it there with the tweezers also once you get it started. Set that aside. I'll show you how to iron in a second. Let's see if I can give you a little bit better demo on that, huh? Tweezers in. Come out the edge. Grab a chunk of fabric. Hold tight. Let your little tube roll over the top. There you go. That's what we were looking for. Then you can use your tweezers to go ahead. Now, this is where that seam is, and we're going to hide that seam for the rest of time by pressing it this way. Okay, so the seam is touching the iron right now. That's the seam. And then I'm going to fold it over to hide the seam, and I'm going to set myself a nice little crease. So I've got one of those like that. And now I have 2 of those little zipper pulls. So let's go ahead and get these into position first. Now this is kind of tricky. I hope you can see the way things are going to happen. I'm going to basically squish the bag parts down onto the zipper. So that seam from the bottom interior and the seam from the top exterior, or the bottom of the exterior, I guess I should call it, they're going to squish down now, and they're just really going to line up. Both sides, I hope you can really see that. They're just going to really line up along our zipper. Now the zipper pulls need to go in. We're just going to take this, we're just going to tuck it right in, right here, and we're going to drop that in on top, and we're going to stitch first across that exterior liner. I'm pulling back the interior, right? I guess I shouldn't have called it a liner, exterior. So now as I come over to the sewing machine, I'm going to go all the way across this edge. Ooh, good catch. I just thought of something that I almost did incorrectly. Let's lift that presser foot back up. Notice where the zipper head is. If I would have stitched this right now, our zipper head basically would have been unusable and our bag would have been sewed closed. So I do need to remind us all, at this moment, we're going to take our zipper and we're going to pull it back into the body of the bag. And you could unzip it quite a ways, as a matter of fact. Go ahead and lay it back together, and just, you know how the zipper comes together. If you want to put a pin in there, you certainly could, but it's not necessary. But there you go. Okay, your zipper's open on this side. It is still closed on the other side. Gently bring it to the sewing machine. Starting out at that upper corner, 1/4 inch seam allowance. All the way through. Now as I approach this zipper itself, I'm going to secure it once, but now I'm going to backstitch. And again. And I'm basically now just backstitching right over where the zipper teeth are, because this acts as a double piece of security. Come across. And I like to do the same steps in order, so I'm just going to go ahead, pull this liner out of the way on this side, lift this up, sneak that zipper pull back in. and go ahead and get started. Same thing on this side. I do want to really secure that zipper. So I'm back stitching as I go over the top of the teeth a few times. Okay, so now we basically secured the outside edge. Now we're going to basically flip it over and do the interior just the same, sewing those closed right along that same that edge right there. We'll rotate, prepare to do the same on this side. And now we're ready to box our corners. And this is where I went wrong in my sample. Now it's still a wonderful bag, and it actually functions, excuse me, Mike. It actually functions really great because you could use longer, skinnier things in here if you had stuff that was this shape. And actually, as a guy on a shaving kit, we have a lot of things that look like this. So it actually isn't the worst project I've ever made. It's just not what I set out to do today. And what I did wrong in that was I boxed the corner this way. Well, that's not what we're doing. We're going to box the corner by holding the bag up, pulling it, and we need to box the corner where the seam, and I know it's a lot to look at right now, right? Where that seam comes right across. Okay, so now the easiest thing to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to mark up that stitched line 1 1/4 inches. I'm running the line of the ruler along the line that I created with the thread by sewing it. Okay, and I'm going to draw, and make sure you can see this line. I'm just going to draw myself a line across there like this. I'm going to come to the sewing machine while I already have it in my hand, and I'm now going to sew on that line. Once that line has been sewn, you can take a pair of scissors or a rotary cutter and give yourself a trim, but basically leave yourself a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, if you've been following the video to this point, you know you have 8 corners to do. We're going to do all 8 of them. I've done 1. I'll be right back to show you how to turn this bag out with them all finished. Okay, and we are back with all 8 corners boxed and trimmed and everything. And remember I said there was a little something I like to do different. Well, right now we've got this kind of hole in this area, and we needed to leave all that gap in that space while we were working to make things easier on our bodies and our hands and all of that. But now that we're back here, I'm just going to take time to kind of flatten this back down, and I just want to stitch across this section right here to seal that up. So I'm not even going to bother going all the way back down into the corners, but I do want to go right on top of the threads I created, but this time I'm going on top of all of the layers. This may cause problems for some of your sewing machines out there, because if the presser foot can't come down far enough, then that means that the tension may be open and you might be losing thread or laying a messy thread on the back of your project. So do watch out for that. I just like to do this because it really works good. And of course my Juki can handle this no problem, as you just saw. So now I basically have sealed off what would have been that hole in there. Once that's done, I'm going to trim away the excess parts of the zipper. So we have to do that on both sides real quick. And again, you don't have to go edge to edge on this, just let's cover that hole up. But we're going to follow our seam that we already created. This also re-secures the zipper one more time, and I just think it's a good idea. Okay, that's finished over here. So now I can go ahead and trim off that and folks, you've really finished the bag, minus the turning it back to right sides out. And I hate to say it, but this is probably the hardest part of the entire project, because you got this little hole, you got this really wonderful, nice, firm fabric. So I did want it to, like I said, to leave about 3 inches there so you could start to slowly push. And so what I'm doing is I'm just kind of putting my finger, and I'm kind of pushing through. And I don't want you to panic, because the first thing you're going to start to see is your liner. So you didn't build the bag wrong, we just haven't come out from the inside of the bag yet, right? That's also why we left our zipper open, so we can get in there and manipulate. So I do want to now open my zipper, if I can, as far as possible, so I can get my fingers into those wonderful boxy corners and really push them out so that they form the proper shape this time. Okay, all of those corners in there, popped out, really great. And what we still have, and I'm going to take my liner, or my outside of my bag, and I'm going to pull it now out of the way. We still have this raw edge, the last of our little sewing to do. So now I'm going to roll this edge underneath. And a lot of you would probably prefer to hand sew this. I consider hand a 4-letter word. So I'm just going to go ahead and top stitch across the bottom of this bag with my sewing machine. So it will show in the bag at the very bottom a little bit, but it will not have any raw edges. So it does make it a very washable little bag, especially if you wanted to put like makeup or toiletries or something in there. That's real important. So now I'm just top stitching a nice little seam to close up that opening we used at the bottom. Probably want to back stitch so it really secure. Okay, and so now that's been done just like that, and now we can go ahead and work to bring out the rest of our bag, grabbing those wonderful box corners and pushing the liner to the interior. There's our wonderful pull. It has the right shape. I'm so excited. Yes, you see me sweating, but it's not about the project. There it is. It is awesome. Just like that. And take a moment like I'm doing and just use your thumb and your finger and push your liner deep, deep into the bag, deep into those corners so they really have some nice shape there for you. Just like that. This is the part we just stitched. That was the area that was so important to have that closed off so it didn't leave that little hole in there. And now you can just grab your pull and give it a slide, and you have a wonderful little box bag using our awesome Vida Loca fabrics. Of course, if you want the alternate pattern, just box the corners in the opposite direction. Don't open them up and you'll get that weird shaped bag as well. A little bonus for today's tutorial. And I know you love those bonuses. I will see you next time right here at Making It Fun. Oh, I'm so hot. Wow, you are still there. Thanks for sticking with me till the end of the video. I know, I get a little long-winded sometimes. But if you did enjoy today's video, make sure you check out a few of the other ones we've created. I think they're terrific. And of course, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the little bell to be notified. I don't want you to miss a moment of the fun. Stay safe and happy sewing.